Okay. So we're recording the class now, guys. Having done the Guru Stotram, I'm going to enter Bhagavad Gītā 1 study book. And we're going to just review the answers and link some ideas together and just solidify everything for the week and give you guys an opportunity to ask any questions should you so desire. So the first thing here that we've got is the spine check. Okay, so this is just the rough summary of what we covered. Hopefully this looks familiar to you guys. Okay, so we got 12 there, so this is going to be a gloss over the entire document. Sorry, I'm getting a bit of lag. All right, so Indian culture is based on what? The scriptures, Vedas. Okay, so Hindu culture itself is Vedic culture. Vedic culture is described as what kind of culture? Religious. Religious culture is a God-centered culture. Okay, so that's the bulk of this lecture, is focusing on what a God-centered life is. Okay, because Christians could read God-centered life and they have an idea, and an atheist can read God-centered life and they have their idea, and a Muslim have their idea. Okay, and the Vedika or the Vedic or the Hindu idea of a God-centered life is very holistic. So that's sort of what we're dipping our toes into in this lecture, is what it means to have a God-centered life and how to incorporate the God-centered, how to incorporate our life around, how to base it around God, how to make it a God-centered life, and what that sort of life looks like. Okay, so one note is that it starts by remembering God in the morning. So we don't wake up and run for a coffee and things like that. We start with a prayer or suprabhatam or ritual, puja or something like that. Everything that we do in life can be converted into yoga. Okay, karma yoga, with devotion and with knowledge, we can turn anything into a yoga, including showering or brushing our teeth and eating and preparing for bed. All of these things can be turned into God-centered life. Okay, so Agni Devata is being mentioned for number 7. Let's see why that is. Okay, so it's just, so this is just basic. It's talking about cremation, what the cremation fire is called. That's the Agni Devata is the reason that we do that, because when we pass away in Hinduism, we believe that by cremating ourselves, Agni Devata will carry us across to the next realm or to the next birth. Okay, so this is sort of the backbone here of a God-centered life and the lecture. Okay, so life without God becomes a rudderless boat. There was an analogy that Swami gave in the lecture of basing your life, not living your life in a God-centered way is like having no directions or being in a rudderless boat. And that's what the Gītā aims to fix for us. It aims to give us direction, and it aims to give us a means of going in that direction. So it tells us what's important in life and it reasons it out so that we can see, and then it tells us how to get there. Okay, and all of that revolves around the God-centered life. So after that, we have some definitions. I trust that you guys have familiarized with the definitions. There's only a few there. So we'll go into Vipat and Sampat, the definition here. Okay, so we've got a shloka here. from the Gītā, and it says that real prosperity is non-forgetfulness, and that the fundamental relationship is with the Lord. And the real tragedy in life is not material failure, and it's not things going wrong, it's forgetting that the fundamental relationship is with Bhagavan. So vipat means misfortune. So the real misfortune is forgetting that fundamental relationship with Bhagavan. And real, true, good fortune is remembering the relationship that we have with Ishvara throughout our daily life. And with practice, we can work that into everything. Like we said earlier, brushing our teeth, making food, sharing, everything that we do, studying, doing schoolwork, all of these things can be turned into yoga. And that's what the lecture is trying to tell us, that we need to be able to do that in order to attain moksha. Now there's an analogy here that I want to share. Okay, so it's the analogy of the swan. So in traditional Advaita Vedanta, there's an analogy given of a swan. Now the swan can be given a bowl of water mixed with milk. So it's a solution. It's a water milk solution. But somehow, when the swan sticks its mouth into the solution, it's able to drink only the milk, and it leaves the water behind. So the swan goes to the bowl and it drinks, and it leaves the water in the bowl, having extracted the milk. So the swan is able to go to a large body where there's mixed parts, and it's able to discern what is milk and what is water, and it's able to take only the milk. Okay? So Swami gave this analogy because our scriptures are so vast. We have Upanishads, we have Brahma Sutras, we have Bhagavad Gītā. On top of that, we have Puranas, we have books on logic, we have books on just logic and knowledge. We have itihasas, we have all sorts of scriptures. So we have so much information that it's not possible to study the entire corpus, especially as a householder. So what the Bhagavad Gītā offers is the essence of the Vedas. So all the Vedas, all the teachings about rituals, all the way up to Brahman, is inside the Gītā. We have morals, we have ethics, we have dharma, we have adharma. We have the complete Vedantic package inside the Gītā. And our job in studying the Gītā is to extract that information, because the Gītā is the essence of the Vedas. The Gītā is the condensed version of the entire Vedas. So, if we don't have time to study the entire Vedas, we can still get the entire essence by studying the Bhagavad Gītā, which is Vedasara. It's the essence of the Vedas. So that's what this analogy is for. It's talking about extracting the essence from things. Okay, and so there's a logical order that this lecture's been presented in, and I've organized that into some points here, okay? So as the reasoning chain goes through from A to H, and it's our job to sort out the correct order. Okay, so we have D, E, and F. So Vedic culture is religious, therefore it's God-centered. The primary relationship is with God, and then it's got here in brackets karna, karya. So that's the sambandha. Sambandha, S-A-M, is translated as coming together, and bandha is bondage. So the coming together of bondage, it means bondage. So the type of bondage or the type of relationship, the sambandha that we have with Ishvara is karana, or the cause. So Ishvara is the cause, and we are the karya, the effect. So in the lecture, Swami was explaining that we have parents and we have siblings and we may even have children and we have a family. And that's our family in this life. But these relationships last for a maximum of one life. So we can't call these a fundamental relationship. The fundamental relationship is with Bhagavan, because he is the cause and we're the effect. Throughout every single birth, throughout every single death, in every single shrishti, or every single instance of the universe manifesting, every single cycle, we have had a single constant relationship. And that relationship is with Bhagavan. So, the sambandha there is karana karya sambandha. Cause, effect, relationship. Okay? So we may have a mum and a dad now, and they're the cause of this body, but Bhagavan is the cause of even that. So the fundamental relationship is with Bhagavan. That's why we nurture that relationship throughout each and every life. Okay? So that was F. We got GBH. So forgetting the Lord is a tragedy. Remembering the Lord is prosperity. Okay? So we covered that. Religious practices require theory. Okay, so religious practices do require theory. So we need to learn about the theory behind all of the rituals that we do, such as puja. We need to understand that, for example, it's not the statue that we're worshipping. Okay? For one simple example, many people confuse Hinduism with idol worship. They think that we're worshipping the idols. But this stems from not understanding how the religion works. They don't understand the theory. They don't understand that Bhagavan, for us, does not necessarily sit up in the clouds and have created this universe and is separate from it. Because in Hinduism, Bhagavan is not separate to the universe itself, that means that when we're worshipping idols, we're not worshipping the rock. We're worshipping what the rock represents. And the rock or the brass or whatever the idol is made of represents the totality. Okay? So, for example, if I want to pay respects to India and I want to acknowledge India or Australia or any country for that matter, how do I do that? Because if I walk up to a person and give them namaskaram, I've paid respect to that person and to Bhagavan, the indweller, the one who's in them, the witness consciousness. We're saying, I recognize that in you. But we haven't said that to the entire of India. So how do we give respects or namaskarams to India, the land? Do we go to the government and give them namaskaras? Do we do it to more people? Or do we find some animals? Maybe we can resort to doing namaskaram to the land itself. But the problem is, I'm still only selecting one part, one tree, one park to do the namaskaram to. So for us to pay respect, to pay homage to the entire of India, what we can do is respect the flag. We can salute the flag, we can do namaskara to the flag, we can acknowledge the flag and what it represents, because it represents culture, it represents people, it represents the land, it represents the laws, it represents the Vedas, it represents India in its entire form. Okay, so when we're worshipping idols, we need to understand the theory of Hinduism. And the best way to understand that theory is to extract the Vedanta Sara, or the Vedic Sara, the essence of the Vedas. Because by doing that, we learn what God is, which is everything. And then the statue stops being a statue and it becomes a flag. It becomes a representation of Bhagavan, which is everything. Even your own thoughts. Everything. It's the laws for everything, okay? So I'll leave that alone now. I think we all get that one. And we had HAC. So, naturally, scriptural study must come first. Otherwise, nothing makes sense. We're worshipping stone, and everything we do is mechanical. If the movements, if the karmas, if the actions we're doing don't have the correct alignment mentally, then we are doing actions only. The karma never gets converted to karma yoga. So there's no union happening. The yoga is the mindset that everything is Bhagavan. We're swimming in a soup of Bhagavan. That's the mindset. Okay? Actually, there's a really nice thing shared today by Swami Dayananda himself. Somewhere. Yeah. I surrender my ego, likes and dislikes at your feet. I don't objectify you, Lord, but I recognize you in the form of a single vast order that pervades my body, my mind, my senses, and the whole universe. My callous behavior is within your order because of my background. My needs, demands, and desires are within your order. My response to the situations and events in my daily life, sometimes in the form of anger, envy or jealousy, hatred, are all due to my background. If I correct myself, that is within your order. If I resist your order, even that is within your order. You are the only one who understands me completely. I never spring any surprise to you, O Lord. You validate all of my actions and reactions. So, in the eyes of Ishvara, I am perfect. Without being judgmental about myself and others, I just keep watching what is going on in my daily life. And I see them as an expression of Ishvara, as they cannot be outside of his order. I relax in Ishvara. That is a really beautiful and poetic example of seeing the world as Bhagavan. So this vision is the goal of our texts, to see everything as Ishvara, as Bhagavan. And in Vedanta, we take it a step further, and we'll learn to see how even Ishvara himself is born out of consciousness. And I am that consciousness. So this is a necessary prerequisite. You need to see the whole world as Ishvara before you can say, aha, all of that is me. So this is the bridge. This is the bridge that we will use later to cross. So develop it. Develop your bhakti, develop your devotion, develop your knowledge, develop your theory, and then do the theory in your life, because that's how you transform. We're not here to study and to accumulate information. We're here to study how to act, how to behave, and we're here to learn about reality and how to think and reason out the logic that we're learning to see if it's true. We want to see it firsthand. Nobody wants to sit here and listen to me or Swami P talk about consciousness unless it's something that they can experience themselves firsthand, right now. Okay, so that's the goal, rest assured. Alright, so here's a couple of things to contemplate. Quality time preserves relationships. Okay, Swami was in the lecture itself. Swami was saying that he read some article about relationships, husband and wife, familial relationships, and he is saying that the article says you have to put time into your relationships to make them work, because quality time in a relationship is what brings people close together, and it's what creates that bond. And so we need to have that quality time with Ishvara as well. So that quality time with skill becomes this that we saw, that I read by Swami Dayananda. It becomes natural. It becomes something that we don't have to work for, because we see it. It's logical, it makes sense, and we can see it. We can see that everything here is Ishvara. So that's that would be the goal, the end goal, as far as quality time with Ishvara goes. Okay, so seeing everything as Ishvara. Okay, so list 2 ways that you can get more out of the gītā. So revision, like we're doing now, we studied through the week, and now we're revising. Sharing or having discussions, okay? Alert living and alignment with your life with the gītā. Okay, so that's what I was saying. We need to do more than just study the gītā. We need to apply the theory. Okay, we need to apply the theory to our life, and we need to use it to transform ourselves. And with that transformation will come a vision of reality, of what reality is. Okay, so there's 4 quarters of learning. E3, here we go. Okay. I think this is a little bit mixed up. But the quarters were studying, revision, sharing, and reliving, I think it was. Okay, so that's the 4 quarters of learning, okay? And so that's what we're already doing here. We've done the learning, we've done the revision, and one day you guys may have the opportunity to share Vedanta yourselves. Okay, so that would be very good for you guys if you can learn to do that. Okay, and the warning about treating the Gita like school books, we've just discussed that. It's not a topic. We're not trying to learn it. We're trying to learn it in order to apply it. So we're not just learning information and then we put the Gita down and we never read it again. We need to constantly be revising, constantly reading, constantly keeping it in our mind, constantly remembering and constantly striving towards that change, because we want the 5 benefits that the Tattva Bodha promises. I don't know if anybody here was in the Tattva Bodha class, but there's 5 benefits that we're supposed to get from studying the scriptures. And that's what we want to get. If we simply read the Gita, if we simply study the Gita and put it down, we're not going to get those benefits. We need to turn it into theory. We need to, turn the theory into practice. So theory must precede practice. Practice is mechanical and empty without theory. Gita is not merely meant for studying. It's meant for something like application. It's meant for living. Okay, so we live it. We need to apply it and we need to live it. All right, so here's one that's interesting. Married life becomes an ashrama only when it's God-centered. So why is living at home considered being an ashrama? Because without a God-centered life, without proper direction, without morals and ethics, without a Vedic lifestyle, there's no real direction in the home. There's no yoga. Okay, so we're just kind of being materialistic. We're not really moving forward in any meaningful way. The only thing we're making connections with is Maya. Everything that we've just made a connection with is mithya. That means that it's not wholesome, because Maya isn't real. It's mithya. So it's constantly changing. It's constantly decaying. It's going through cycles of birth and death all the time. There's nothing here that's stable to grab onto, to offer you any sort of lasting peace or happiness. Including the relationships, we've been learning that the only fundamental relationship we have that's never going to go anywhere is with God. So, a materialistic life without that God-centered approach that gives us ethics and morals and has us follow dharma, that becomes a shrama. Okay, so that's shrama. It's not ashrama. Okay, so an ashrama can become the householder's life. Your household itself can become an ashrama by this God-centered life. So grihast ashrama is only for people who have a God-centered life. If you say you're a grihastha, then that means you are following a God-centered life and seeking moksha. And your ashrama, your place of worship where you connect with God and where you transform yourself, is the home, the grihastha ashrama. It's a choice that we made. We want to seek liberation through the household. And so the household becomes an ashrama. How? God-centered life, study of the Gita, learning theory and applying into our lives. That's how we turn the life at home into an ashrama. Okay, and the last one here, again, real prosperity is remembrance of that fundamental relationship. Okay, so nothing overly technical here, guys. Not overly intellectually stimulating. However, we are laying out incredibly important fundamentals. Okay, so I hope that all of this has made sense to you guys, and I hope it has just elaborated even on the lecture. If not, just given you an opportunity at revision again, okay? Because we need to pay attention to the 4 pillars. We need to be studying. We need to be revising. If anybody has any questions, or if some opportunity by Bhagavan's grace presents itself to you, you can share Vedanta. Okay, so there's these opportunities that are out there, and we can utilize them, which we're doing here. So good job for everybody showing up today. I just have some flashcards here that we'll finish up with, just for that final revision. So what is the fundamental sambandha? Sambandha is relationship. That gets taught here in this lecture. It is Jiva Ishvara Sambandha. That is, God is the cause and we are the effect. Is Jiva Ishvara relationship for one life only? No. It holds in every single birth of the cosmos, in every single birth of the Jiva. How are all worldly relationships classified in the Vedantic framing? They're incidental, they're temporary, they are relative. They can last one life at most. What is the Veda's practical warning about life direction? Forgetting a fundamental relationship makes life directionless. It is like a rudderless boat. We can chase material, we can chase a house, we can look for security, we can do all of these things, but ultimately they will be taken and we will suffer and we will die. And we will take birth again and it will happen all over again. Anadi Kala, beginningless time that's been happening. So define real prosperity and real tragedy. That is remembrance and non-forgetfulness of the Lord, and the tragedy is forgetting the Lord. Why? Because that vision that Swami Dayananda described vanishes. And without that vision, there is no grahastha-ashrama. There is no ashrama at all. What makes a lifestyle religious or God-centered? Here, understanding. Understanding comes first. Understanding that relationship, preserving it and nourishing it through our actions, through our devotion, through our emotions while making those actions. That's how we preserve it. By study, by action, by implementation. Why are religious practices prescribed? Not just a mere rule, they're actually prescribed, they're recommended. Do this, it's good for you. Because a relationship is maintained only by giving quality and exclusive time. So time with the Lord, remembering time with Bhagavan, is those rituals. It is prayer. It is meditation. That's why we're doing all of these things, to remember Bhagavan and to develop a relationship, to keep him on our mind all day, to integrate him into our deep subconscious, so that when we see the world, we don't see the world, we see Ishvara, and we see that we're not separate. We're just in Ishvara. What happens to practice without a Vedantic understanding? It becomes empty. It's mechanical ritual. And eventually we just stop because we lose interest. It's that simple. What must come first? Study or practice? We need theory first. We need to study first. We need to know the principles. We need to know the philosophy. We need to know the theory. Then we can apply it. Application is called practice. Both are essential, but we need to do it in the correct order. Okay, we've just discussed this one. What turns Grihastha life into an ashrama rather than a shrama? A life becomes ashrama only when it is God-centered. Otherwise, the married life is shrama. It's strain, it's stressful, it's directionless, it's exhausting. If our life is an ashrama, it's the opposite of that. Okay, congratulations, we've finished the deck. Alright guys, like I said, not an overly dense, not an overly technical lecture, but very important fundamentals. I hope that my facilitation has helped those to stick. I hope the materials were useful. If you guys have any questions, please DM me or drop them in the group chat, or I'll stay here for 5 minutes and you can ask me over voice. That's it for today. Enjoy the rest of your day. Hari Om.